Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I am super pleased to have with me today Tana M, who is CEO and founder of TanaMsession.com. Tana, welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here. Thanks so much for the invite.
Awesome. We were just saying before we jumped on that we met on social media, and I am just so impressed by your impressive background. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're currently doing.
Sure. So as you said, I'm the CEO and founder of TanaMsession.com, and that includes international speaking, business consulting, and strategy coaching as well. So I work with companies and individuals to help them achieve their goals and, what their objectives are, whether it's in a short period of time or a longer period of time, like let's say a year. So I partner with them in those areas. My background's in HR, so I've been in human resources for well over 30 years and spent 10 of those as a top HR executive for different companies. And about 4 years ago, decided to leave and branch out and do my own business where I can combine the things that I love about HR and the things that I love about coaching and be able to deliver specialized and customized services to my clients.
Awesome. Well, based on that description, I'm going to say you probably were in the driver's seat before you stepped out into entrepreneurship. So tell me when you realized that you were in the driver's seat for your career.
Definitely when I transitioned from being a transactional HR generalist to becoming the manager and the head of an HR department. So to me, that shifted. I had to have a mind shift around that. So I had to go from being transactional or tactical in my practice and mentally to being much more strategic. And once I went through that growth mentally and also just in my career, I realized what the impact was that I would have every day I walked in that office, especially with a team looking to me for guidance or members of the C-suite looking to me for guidance. That's when I realized I was in a driver's seat. And that's when I realized the impact of what the power of my position had.
Wow. How does one make that move? And what skills do you need to have that transition or have that aha?
Well, I started as an admin assistant in HR. So I tell people I've been every position that you can imagine in human resources with the exception of payroll. So never done payroll. But, through that experience, I was able to find out what my expertise was and where I wanted to specialize. And through doing those roles, it also allowed me to have and bring more value to the senior leadership positions that I later gained in my career. So within 7 years, I was able to move from an admin assistant to a VP of HR. I tripled my income. Yeah, I tripled my income. I completed 2 degrees. I got 3 certifications. So I just really had a vision for where I saw my career going. And when I saw that corner office, I knew I wanted to be in that office one day. So I put a plan in place to get me there as quickly as possible. And fortunately, I had supporters. I had sponsors, mentors around me that supported my growth and also challenged me. And I also had those who said, "You're not ready. Who do you think you are?" Basically. And I had to prove to them and more so to myself that I was ready and that I knew exactly what I was doing and that I deserved to be in that seat. So when I got in that corner office, I was already there mentally. So to me, physically being there was just a culmination of all the work I'd done.
So I was about to ask you what's the secret sauce, but you jumped right into it. So I heard a solid plan, sponsorship, mentorship, and mental strength.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's amazing because, sometimes we want to be somewhere. And I love that you explained to us from admin to corner office because sometimes we don't think that's possible. And so of those things, which one do you think was the most important?
Education, definitely. I didn't graduate with my undergrad until I was 38. And then I got my MBA at 40 because I was just that driven. I was just that determined. But what I realized along the way was I was doing the work, but without the title. And when I applied for the title, I couldn't get it because I didn't have the education. So I basically had to get out of my own way and decide that, take the time to finish your degree. I'd gone off and on throughout the years and never really did anything to finish it. But I also was a single parent at the time. And I knew I had a son that one day I would want to encourage him to go to college. Like going to college was not an option. He would just have to do it. And what I didn't want him to do, because he was precocious, was say, well, Mom, you didn't go to college and you're okay, but I wasn't okay. It looked like it on the outside because people thought, you're in this, decent position in HR, you're a journalist, you're making decent money. And in some cases, even able to travel. But I had my sights set higher for me. So I knew that was never going to be enough. And I knew I couldn't do it without a degree. So that to me really was, once I had that, no one could tell me anything. So like they gave a degree to the wrong person.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I know all about that. When I got my degree, I thought, okay, I'm solid. I'm done.
Exactly. Like no more excuses.
Just more than the degree. So I know that you added more to that sauce other than to make it happen. So tell us then, what would you say the formula for successfully owning your career is?
I definitely emphasize having a plan. Oftentimes I coach people on their careers or even on their job hunting strategies, and they're all over the place, and they're like, well, I want to do this and I want to do that, or they're applying for a bunch of different things. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you need to narrow your focus and you have to have a plan because, if you fail to plan, you're going to plan to fail. So I believe in having a solid plan. And if that means, working with a coach or a mentor to really just throw everything up on the wall and see what sticks, what really resonates with you, because sometimes people operate out of comparing themselves to others and seeing what others have done. So they feel like, oh, I want to do that too. Not knowing whether or not that's really a core strength for them or even their purpose. So I think when you start just kind of writing things down, think big, think outside of boundaries, outside of limitations that you may put on yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, or even financially. That's going to help you really understand how to own your career. It's just having that plan and then starting to put steps in place to achieve it once you have it really fleshed out.
Awesome. How do you know what goes into that plan?
Well, I think, again, working with someone who probably decided to walk that path already, whether it's a mentor or someone who can just help you understand how to map it out, understanding what your blind spots are. So that's where a coach will come into play. And that's where I kind of work with my clients on as well, is just helping them understand, you've been doing this so far and that's great, but now you've hit a wall. Why did you hit that wall? Let's talk about it. Why do you feel stuck? Or why do you feel like you don't really have clarity in terms of what you're supposed to be doing or where you should be going or what's the next level for your career? So for me, that's what I've realized, just for my own self and working with others, was to just have someone there that can kind of that sounding board for you. Because it is sometimes difficult to figure it out on your own. You can look at listen to podcasts or read books or, look at things on YouTube. Of course, that's helpful. That's very helpful because I do it myself still to this day. But also having a sounding board, someone you can really talk it out through, because we have to get out of our own heads.
I love that. Get out of your own way. So important. Well, talk to us about some of the risks that you've taken in your career.
A few. I think the ones that first comes to mind is I was working as an HR manager. I was with this company for almost 3 years, and I felt like I should have been a director. I was leading the HR department. I was the first one in the HR department. I built the HR department from scratch with a small investment research firm in New York. And every year I would sit down with the CEO and talk about what my goals and plans were. And I, completed my undergrad. I was working towards my master's, and his answer was always, you're not ready. You're not ready. You're not ready. And so I didn't see it the way he did. And I said, okay, it's time for me to look elsewhere and take my talents to a place that it can be appreciated and where they will see that I'm ready. And so I worked with a recruiting company, and they were able to find a VP of HR role. Now you can imagine going from manager to VP. So I skipped over director, senior director, senior manager. I went straight to the top. And it was for a nonprofit company, and it was located near my home. At the time, I was living in the suburbs in New York. So it was located near my home, which meant my commute would be a lot shorter. And I stepped into that opportunity. And it was a huge risk because the amount of responsibility was a much bigger organization. It was new. I had never worked in nonprofit as an employee. I'd done volunteer work, but never as an employee. And it was in a space that I was not familiar with. So it was in healthcare. And I had to understand everything from soup to nuts. I've spent a lot of time with the other managers and directors who have been with the company for a long period of time, just to really absorb as much information. So really be that sponge for those first 6 months on the job. So I could really feel like I owned that position, because I did get in my head where I felt like, oh my God, did I bite off more than I could chew? Am I really at a VP level? Maybe this is too much for me, in terms of what the responsibilities were and how much accountability I had. But it was the right thing. It was a risk, and it was the right thing, because from that job, it led me to so many other bigger opportunities that if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Amazing. So what kind of conversation were you having with yourself as you decided to take on this big risk? What do you have to say to yourself to do it?
You got this. and I'll show you.
That's right. That's right. And you did, no doubt.
I did. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because some people are stuck in, you get caught up there. I have been there with really good job, really good benefits, really good access, and things that make it, even though you're not happy and not wanting to stay there, but things that
comfortable.
Make it hard to make that leap. So
yeah, because you get comfortable too. So, when you get comfortable and you kind of know I know what's expected of me, and I know what my raise is going to be and my bonus. So you get comfortable. And I was, after 2 years or so, I was pretty comfortable. But then it got to a point where I got tired of hearing the word no. And, for him to decide what my future was supposed to be. And I was like, no, I can't give you that much power over me anymore.
Awesome. You must be such a good role model for your son. How old is your son now?
He's 23 now. He's still precocious.
Okay. But he's taking notes, no doubt.
He is.
Awesome. Well, can you think of a moment in your career that you avoided responsibility and what you did to overcome that moment?
I would have to say it would definitely be not taking responsibility for not having a degree. So it got to a point where I was applying for promotions or applying for new jobs, and I wasn't getting them. And I knew I could do the job because, as I said, I'd already been doing the work, but without the title. And I remember sitting with, at the time it was called an administrative manager. It was an administrative manager who was my boss. And she said, well, Tana, without your degree, you're never going to qualify for a promotion here, because everything beyond where you are now requires a degree. And instead of me taking responsibility for the fact that I didn't finish my degree and I didn't take the steps that I needed to do over, so many years, because at the point I'm sitting here, I'm 36 years old. And, I was blaming everyone else. So I would have to say that to me was that pivotal point in my career where I said, I have to take that accountability, and I have to know that I was responsible for it. And I had to do something different. I couldn't blame anyone else. I couldn't be mad or angry with anyone else. I had to just face the music and do something different, or be okay with where I was. And I decided to do something different. So that is, when I saw that question, I thought that's the one really that sticks out to me when I can think about, a situation in my career.
Hey everybody, this is Simone Morris, the host of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I want to talk to you today about a wonderful workshop that I will be hosting in Stamford, Connecticut on July 27th. And guess what? It's also called The Power of Owning Your Career. This is an experience that you do not want to miss. You know why? Because you want to take your career to the next level. You want to be in the driver's seat for your career. You have some big dreams, and I want to help you make them a reality. Here's some of the things that we're going to cover in the workshop. Number one, I want you to leave confident that you can make your next career move. Sometimes we get wounded in our careers and we get stuck or stalled and we don't know how to move forward. So I want to give you the confidence that you need to move forward. The next thing is answers to the burning career questions. This is a hot one that has come up in the previous workshops that I've given. And the nice thing is I've assembled a nice cast of experts that are going to talk to you about their career journey, how they got to the driver's seat, strategies for networking, building relationships, and answer your questions. So you don't want to miss Minda Harts, Sheila Wall, Shannon Daniels, Tracy M, and myself answering your career questions. Additionally, you're going to get tools to help you with networking. Some of us do not like networking, so we want to reframe the conversation around networking and talk to you about how to build strategic relationships for career success. You don't want to miss this. I am excited to be bringing Owen Company to the workshop again. They do an amazing job of capturing the professional headshot. You want to have a professional headshot for things that you're doing in your career because it's a part of your personal brand. So that's something else that we'll be doing at the workshop. And finally, even though there's a lot more great things, but finally, I want to draw to your attention that we create a plan of action for moving your career forward. So if you are interested and ready to take your career to the next level, go to www.pooycexperience.com. Again, it's www.pooycexperience.com. And get your ticket. Take a chance. Take a leap. Come on out and learn something. And believe me, you're going to walk away feeling more confident about the driver's seat and about the next chapter in your career. See you on July 27th in Stamford, Connecticut.
I want to talk about education for a moment because some people don't understand the value of education or believe that they need that extra degree. And especially what I love is that you did it when you were older. You know, because you, again, that comfortable, you get in your own way and you don't think that you need it. So, you know, how important is education?
I think it's pivotal, you know, depending again on what your career goals are or even your business goals. So in this day and age now, especially with millennials being, you know, the biggest group entering the workforce, you know, their entrepreneurial mindset is far more advanced than mine was at their age. I really was thinking about, you know, go to school, get a job, work hard, retire. Whereas they're thinking, no, my son included.
Sure.
So, you know, I think not to say you have to have something to fall back on or even have a plan B, you know, because that used to be my mindset and no longer is. What I can say is that an education gives you a good solid foundation for whatever it is that you want to do in life, in your future. And, you know, do you have to do it straight out of high school, go straight into college? No, you don't. And a lot of people are taking these gap years, you know, gap year or years even to try and figure out, you know, who they are and what they want to do and et cetera. I say do that. But at some point, I think a formal education, even if it's not a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree, if it's some sort of certification or some sort of structured learning that you go through for personal and professional development is key. And you should never stop doing it. You know, that's why even after getting my MBA, I still went on and got HR certifications, multiple ones, because for each level of my career, I knew I needed something different. I needed some more knowledge, some more tools in my toolkit that I can pull from to be that much more of a value to my clients or even to my company. So education to me is key. I'm actually the commencement speaker for my MBA, my graduate school this summer.
So that's wonderful. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm excited about that. And that's one of the things that I'm really, you know, emphasizing is that I know, especially in this day of social media and what I call popcorn culture, where everything's done in 15 seconds, you know, and they're like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, I'm famous. Oh, I'm, you know, successful without doing the work. Right. So a lot of stuff doesn't sustain. And I think it's important for people to understand that, yes, there are people that have done it without degrees, but think about how many of those there are versus the ones who have degrees and that are successful. I think you'll see that there's a big difference. Those are probably the outliers versus the ones that really went to school, did the work, and they're able now, even as entrepreneurs, to still pull off of that education that they went through.
Yeah, I attribute education as a game changer in my life. I was the first one in my family to go to college and, sort of lead the way. And I just wonder where I would be without that education foundation. And so for me, I still believe in being a lifelong learner. Because I think in order to be competitive, again, what you're saying about, all these young people and the different mindset, just to be competitive in the marketplace, you just have to continuously invest in yourself to be successful, I think. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm an educator too, so I'm passionate about education. So, I teach a HR development course at UCLA, and I've done some teaching for Cal State University, Long Beach. So I'm still, even though I'm officially out of school, thank God, I'm still in school because I feel like, the next generation, needs to understand the value of an education. And I know, again, so many people are, speaking against it. And there are even companies now like Ernst & Young, for instance, which is my former employer, where I learned, got started in HR, but they're now removing the requirement for a degree because they realize that people have a lot of experience that they bring to the table and they don't necessarily have a degree. And that's okay. I think that works when it works.
Awesome. I didn't realize that. Because for a while there, we had companies, to be an administrative assistant, it was saying a bachelor's degree. And I was like, oh, come on.
Right.
So that's interesting to me to hear you saying that. Okay. It's almost like, Deloitte with the employee resource group thing where, companies are moving forward towards the affinity groups and Deloitte took
it away.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
They're like, oh, we're fixed. We don't need this anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Right. Keep telling yourself that. Okay.
Keep telling yourself that.
Absolutely. Okay. What resources, online or otherwise, have you found to be helpful for you in owning your career?
I think more so now as an entrepreneur, I've embraced what I call the automobile university. So podcasts are my new best friend. I listen to so many a variety of them. And usually I walk away with something of value, either something that I need to jot down really quickly that I could share with a client because it's something that we're working on, or it's just something even for my own self that I said, oh, I never thought about it or looked at it that way. So just having that open-mindedness to know that no matter how old you are, where you are in your business or your career, as you said, it's lifelong learning. You should always be learning until until the day you die. So I would say, different podcasts I listen to. One in particular is How I Built This. And it's about different entrepreneurs who have built their businesses from scratch. So I just listened to the guy who developed Peloton and hearing his story. And I also listened to the guy who created Men's Warehouse and hearing his story. So just, getting inside the minds of these great business people that we get to see the after story, the success, but hearing what it took for them to get there. I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm doing all the right stuff. You just gotta keep going. Don't give up, right? Because, the next big hurdle might be the one that just is that big yes I've been waiting for. And it's like that multi-million-dollar project or idea. So just getting that, inspiration and encouragement and empowerment and listening to them. And then, I listened to this other thing called InstaRead, which is a quick little mini way to read books. So I bragged about it in my last month's newsletter where I said, I read 5 books in a week. And I'm like, and here's how I did it.
Nice. I love
all the books I've wanted to read that I haven't had time, and some of them are sitting on my bookshelf. I've pulled it up on InstaRead, and it gives you like the key takeaways. And it's about, 20 to 25 minute blurb about the book that's being narrated. And it's fantastic.
So wait, I'm going to have to copy that because I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. I have much to read. And I'm saying to myself, so is this a podcast or an app that allows you to get information in?
InstaRead. Yep. It's an app.
Oh, okay. I'm looking that up. That's a good one. I love this podcast because I get to learn a lot too. But our listeners are definitely tuning in. Wonderful. So before we started, I asked you for a headline
Yes.
For your life. And you said from foster care to fabulous, but we didn't really talk about that. So please, where does that come from?
It's my life. So I was born and raised in foster care with a foster family from the day I was born until I was almost 4 years old in New York. And, I was fortunate because I didn't have to go into the system, quote unquote, and I didn't have to go into a foster care center. I was actually with a family who raised me. And until I was reunited with my maternal grandfather and his wife and family. And then they moved from New York to South Carolina, which I stayed until I was almost until I was 16. So I tell people that story because for me, it is about, as I said, with these entrepreneurs, you get to see the after story, right? The after effects, but you don't know the journey. And that's more important than even the lights and the cameras and the brand and everything else that comes with it, is to understand what foundation am I standing on. So I tell people about, the adversities I experienced, from verbal and physical abuse to, not having the support of parents, meeting those parents and being, disappointed in relationships that we had with one another, losing my parents at a very young age and having to deal with that as well. Going through marriages, divorces, homelessness, being on welfare, etc. So that's why I say from foster care to fabulous really is a culmination of my life story because it really speaks to, it's that, they say on your gravestone, you have the dash in the middle. That's my dash in the middle, from foster care to fab. So yes, Tana was born here and, left this universe on whatever year, but in between that, she was from foster care to fabulous.
I love it. What a great way to end. I can't even, I love it. Thank you for your transparency and just sharing your story. I loved hearing it. Wonderful. So how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Excellent. So they can visit my website, TanaMSession.com, find out all things about Tana there, where I'm speaking, what I speak about, book me to speak, book me to come into your company as a consultant. I do a lot of consulting with various industries from an HR and business strategy perspective. And then they can also follow me on all social media platforms, Tana M Session. So that's where they can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Tana M Session.
Well, Tana, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. You have dropped many, many nuggets. I am just a fan, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.